Hi everybody, this is Maureen from mycasestudies.blogspot.com, and today I'm going to be making this clean and simple Mother's Day card using the direct to rubber, or as it's not rubber anymore, I just say direct to stamp technique using markers. So let's get started. Okay, so to get started I have a few supplies. This is the Sweet Memories set from Power Poppy. I just love sweet peas. They're so pretty and I love the scent of it. I just love everything about them. So I picked this set and I specifically am using this image, the one with the full flower and then the little bud. And I'm also going to use the Sentiment Mom because this is going to be for my Mother's Day card. And I have my mini MISTI and I have the Creative Corner. I'm just using it as a magnet today. And then I have a bunch of Tombow markers. I picked out 4 kind of greenish, yellowish, yellow-green colors, and then 4 pinks. And if you want to know the numbers, they are 90, 173, 195, and 177. And then the pinks are 800, 723, 743, and 755. And so that's what I'm going to be doing to color directly on my stamp. And then I've got just a plain old piece of white cardstock. I decided not to do watercoloring on it because once the water hits it, it really changes the look of the lines. So if you don't do it all over, it kind of looks funny, but then when you do it all over, it kind of looks funny. So I decided to just do the coloring on the stamp and do some blending to show you what a great tool the MISTI can be for coloring directly on your stamps. So I have my stamp. I'm going to put it face down on my card where I want it. I'm going to close the lid and pick it up. And then I'm going to start, and by the way, you notice that my stamp looks totally pink. And I actually did that on purpose. I stained my stamp. First I used a pink ink pad all over the whole thing to get it pink. And that's why my whole set pretty much is pink too. So I got a lighter pink and I stained the entire stamp with this lighter pink color, and then I rinsed or wiped it off. And then I got my Tombow marker, like this dark pink color, and I drew on it where the dark pink would be so that I can see the details of the stamp when I'm coloring it. And then also, as I've used it and practiced with it, it's become a little more stained. So you can really see the detail, because when you have a clear stamp, a lot of times it can be hard to see the detail the first time you use it. So I like to stain mine sometimes like this when I want to color specific spots, different colors. And of course it doesn't hurt the stamp. I clean off the ink and this is just what's left on the stamp, and it doesn't hurt it at all. It still stamps perfectly, and it can still stamp in other colors besides pink, of course. Okay, so I zoomed in as much as I can so that you can still see the paper and my stamp, so you can see kind of what I'm doing on it. Hopefully you can see that. I'm starting with this light yellow color 090, and when I pick out my colors, I just kind of try and find colors that'll go together. They don't have to match perfectly, because when you're doing this technique, you're going to be blending the colors a bit. So even colors that don't necessarily go together will blend together and make like a harmonious color blend. So I don't worry too much about picking my colors. And then some of them might not even show. You know, I start with this light yellow, but I might actually go over it so much that you can't even see it. And actually that's really, really light. So I might not want to keep going with that one, so I'll just do another layer just to see if it gets any darker. And it did a little bit, but what I'm going to do is just move on to my next color, which is 173. And so I'm telling you, just play with it, have fun with it, practice. You know, don't worry too much about using up cardstock. It's really fun. I love coloring directly on my stamps and stamping them with the MISTI because it's so easy to do. And there you can see that one came out a lot better. And what I'm going to do is just go over that a little bit more, and I might want to leave some areas with that kind of yellowy tone, but because it didn't show up very well, I probably go over most of my stamp with that green just so that I can see it. And I'm going to look really closely at my stamped image and see, is that everything? Did I get everything? Is that really the whole image? All the parts that need to be green? And looks good. So I'm going to go on to my next darker color, 195. And once I start getting into the darker colors, I'm going to start concentrating my color just where there are going to be shadows, which is under the petals, on the top. There's going to be a little darkening at the stem, which is right underneath the petals and leaves. Maybe some darker area down here towards the bottom. Darker area where the stems join, and at the bottom of the green part of the bud. Things like that. And remember, every time, my magnet is holding this in place pretty well, but every time you want to make sure that your cardstock is firmly pushed into that corner to make sure that you're stamping in exactly the same place every time. So that looks pretty good. So I'm going to move on to my last color, 177. And really I'm going to concentrate it just on where I think the very darkest parts are going to be. So I'm not going to use a lot of this color. And when you look at the finished product, you might think, wow, she just used like 2 colors, and you can't tell that I used a lot of different colors. And that's kind of the point, actually, because I want them to blend and go together and everything, so that you can't tell that I used 4 different colors and I did this technique. Maybe you'll think that I used, you know, just a couple colors and I actually drew this myself. That's sort of what I'm going for. And so you can see there's little darker areas, little lighter areas, but it all blends pretty nicely, even though I'm not actually blending them on the stamp. When you stamp them over, you get a really nice blend. Because I'm not cleaning off my stamp in between the inkings, so it sort of blends together all on its own and then onto the paper. So it's a really nice effect, I think. So I'm going to move on to my pinks for the flowers, and I'm starting with 800, this really light pink. And I didn't even clean off my greens, because I'm going to try and not touch those areas anyway, because I don't want pink on my green areas. But if I do get a little bit on, that's fine too. It'll just give me kind of a nice little blend. And wow, that's really, really light. Let me try that again and see if I'm gonna just not go with this color. Actually, no, you can see that. Let me hold that up to the camera. You can sort of see that, and I think that's a really nice light color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate on the tips of my petals and not worry too much about the bottom, because the tips are going to be what parts are the lightest. And please excuse my voice because I'm sick. I've been sick for a while and it's really bugging me, but I need to get my videos done, so I'm doing it sick. Okay, so I'm just gonna come in again with that light pink. And that looks like I got everything I wanted to get, except maybe for this area right here. And you have to remember that this is mirror image, so what's on my far left on this side on my paper is going to be far right on this side on my stamp. So I'm going to color that far right edge of the flower and stamp that down. And yeah, I got that. So I'm going to move on to my next color, 723, and just like I did with the greens, when you start moving into your darker colors, you want to stay off the areas that you want to be the lightest. You can go over the parts that you want to be the darkest, because you'll go over those parts and cover it up anyway, but the lighter areas you want to leave alone. So like the very tips of the petals, I want to leave so that it keeps that nice light pink color. And then I want to come in, you can see that, towards the bottom areas, and I can go back and do those again if there's not enough on those. Not enough color. And once again, pushing my paper into that corner. Okay, and now I'm going to go on to my next color, 743, and again I'm concentrating more on the areas that are just going to be the darkest. So like the veins, the little dots that are indicating shadows, the bottoms of the petals, this bottom edge of the bud. Okay, and that looks good, so I'm going to move on to my final color, which is 755. It's a really dark pink, so I'm just going to, just like with that really dark green, I'm just going to use it very sparingly. And you won't even really be able to tell that I used another color there, probably. Yeah, it's just a little bit darker and it gives a nice blend. And then what I can do actually is at the end I can come in with my lightest color and go over the top and sort of blend in that color into the other colors that I put onto my stamp. And so when I stamp it, I'll get even a more blended look. So I'm really happy with that. You can see all the color variations, but it blends together. You don't see really harsh lines. You can kind of see where it ends, but it's not a harsh, like really stark line. And if you see something that maybe, oh, you know, this dark green kind of didn't blend into that light green so well, you can put your paper back in your MISTI, get one of your lighter colors, and I'm going to come in here and blend that in. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's a much softer blend right there from the dark to the medium green. And then it's nice because I actually have some of this light kind of yellowish look. You can see with the pinks I have the light pink on the tips of the petals and then the darker pinks in there, and so I really like the way this looks. So I'm going to put my card down and step away from my desk so I can finish off this card and come back and show you the finished product. Okay, so here's my finished card, and you can see there's that gorgeous flower that I did, and you can see all the different variations of color. And what I did to finish it off is I just die cut it, and then I added the sentiment Mom, which is actually from that same Sweet Memories set from Power Poppy. And I think this is just a really nice, clean and simple Mother's Day card, but I think it packs a punch with that variation of color. It just looks really sophisticated, I think, anyway. So I hope you like this video, and I hope you'll go over and check out my blog at mycasestudies.blogspot.com. Thanks for watching.